I never thought I would live to hear the words my own children said to me that evening. You're old and poor. You don't belong here anymore. Those were the exact words that came out of my daughter's mouth as my son stood beside her, arms folded, nodding in agreement. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened and the room around me spun. I had given them everything. My time, my health, my sleepless nights when they were babies, my hard-earned money when they were adults. And now, standing in my own living room, they looked at me as if I were some unwanted burden. I tried to hold back my tears, but one slipped down my cheek. I looked at them, the children I had once cradled in my arms, and I asked, "Why are you saying this?" My son's wife smirked and said coldly, "Because you don't have anything left. You can't provide. You're just old." Their words cut deeper than any knife ever could. My daughter, who once used to braid my hair and beg me for bedtime stories, now told me I was useless. My son, who once clung to my legs when he was afraid of thunder, now glared at me like I was a stranger. And yet, none of them knew the truth. They didn't know about the letters locked in my desk drawer. They didn't know about the lawyer who had been waiting patiently for years. They didn't know about the $42 million inheritance that was mine, and only mine, until the day I chose to reveal it. So I stood there, quiet and broken, letting them laugh, letting them mock me. Because deep down, I knew something they didn't. One day soon, they would learn the truth. And when that day came, everything would change. I wasn't born rich. In fact, my early years were nothing but struggle. I worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table for my children. Their mother, my late wife, was the heart of our home. She used to remind me, money can come and go, but family is forever. Those words became the backbone of how I raised my children. My daughter, Anna, was my firstborn. She was delicate but strong-willed, always asking questions about the world. When her little brother David was born 2 years later, she became protective, holding his hand whenever he cried. I used to watch them play in our small backyard, their laughter echoing through the old wooden house. To me, those sounds were worth more than gold. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Birthdays were simple. Homemade cakes, candles that sputtered because we reused them year after year. Christmas mornings meant socks stuffed with oranges and candy, not expensive toys. But my children never complained back then. They hugged me, kissed me, and said they were happy. I remember one cold winter when our heater broke. We huddled together under blankets in the living room. Anna said, "It feels like camping." And David laughed, pretending to roast marshmallows over the candle flame. They turned hardship into joy, and I thought to myself, maybe I am doing something right, but life has a cruel way of testing even the strongest bonds. The years passed, and little by little I noticed changes. Anna stopped holding my hand when we crossed the street. David stopped asking me to read him bedtime stories. They grew up, and with that, they grew apart from me. At first, it was natural. Teenagers pull away, I told myself. They need their independence. But there were moments when I felt an invisible wall rising between us, brick by brick. I remember overhearing Anna once talking to a friend on the phone. She said, "My dad works too hard, but he doesn't have much to show for it." I shrugged it off, convincing myself she didn't mean it the way it sounded. But deep inside, it hurt. I told myself I still had time. That family love was unbreakable. That nothing could shake what we had built together. But I didn't know then. That the very children who once clung to me for safety would someday push me away in the cruelest way possible. As the years rolled on, life began to shift. Anna blossomed into a bright young woman. She was the first in our family to go to college. I worked extra shifts at the factory, sometimes skipping meals just to make sure her tuition was paid. The day we dropped her off at the dorms, she hugged me tight and whispered, "I'll make you proud, Dad." David, on the other hand, wasn't much for studying. He was full of energy, always chasing dreams that came and went. One week he wanted to be a musician, the next an athlete. I didn't mind. I told him, "Son, you don't have to be the best at everything. You just have to find what makes your heart beat." For a while, it felt like I had done my job well. Anna would call home, telling me about her classes. David would sit at the kitchen table, sketching plans for his future. Their mother and I would smile at each other, proud of what we were building. But soon, little cracks began to appear. Anna started talking about how embarrassed she felt when her friends visited and saw our modest home. Everyone else's parents drive nice cars, Dad, she complained once. Couldn't you trade in that old truck? I chuckled to hide the sting. That truck has carried you to every piano lesson and soccer game, I said. It's old, but it runs, she rolled her eyes. Yeah, but people notice. David, too, began to change. When he was 17, he asked me for money to buy a motorbike. I told him we couldn't afford it. His face darkened, and he muttered under his breath, What's the point of working so hard if we're always broke? I pretended not to hear, but the words cut deep. For the first time, I saw something in my children's eyes that wasn't love or respect. It was disappointment. Their mother tried to reassure me. They're young. They don't understand sacrifice yet, she said, resting her hand on mine. And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But then came the night Anna returned from college for the holidays. We were eating dinner, laughing, when she casually mentioned how her roommate's father had already set aside property for her future. She looked at me expectantly, as though waiting for me to say I had done the same. I forced a smile and said, What I can give you is love and support. That's worth more than property. But Anna's silence told me she didn't believe it, and in that silence, I felt something shift. A seed of greed, or maybe resentment, had been planted. What I didn't know was that seed would one day grow into something poisonous, something that would almost destroy me. After my wife passed away, the house felt emptier, colder. She had been the bridge between me and the children, softening their sharp words, reminding them of my sacrifices. Without her, it was just me, standing alone against the storm I didn't yet see coming. Anna came home less often. When she did, she carried herself differently, polished clothes, an expensive handbag I knew I hadn't paid for. Her conversations revolved around money, promotions, property, investments. She spoke a language I barely understood. One evening, as we cleared the dinner table, she sighed and said, Dad, you should sell this old house. Move into something smaller. Use the money while you can, I frowned. This house holds every memory of your childhood. Why would I sell it? She shrugged, avoiding my eyes. Because memories don't pay bills. David, meanwhile, began to grow restless. He fell in with friends who flashed cars, watches, and cash. I knew something was wrong when he came home one night smelling of alcohol, tossing his jacket onto the couch. Where'd you get this? I asked, picking up the leather jacket that clearly cost more than a month of my wages. He smirked. Don't worry about it, Dad. You wouldn't understand. But I did worry. I worried that the values I had tried so hard to instill were slipping away, replaced by something darker. Then came the first real betrayal. One afternoon, I came home early from work and found David in my study. He was rifling through my desk drawers, papers scattered across the floor. David! I barked. He jumped, stuffing a folder under his arm. I was just looking for stamps, but I wasn't a fool. I grabbed the folder from him, and inside were property documents, the very papers I had locked away. His eyes hardened when he saw my expression. You don't need all this, Dad, he said, his voice cold. Why not just sign some of it over to us now? You're not getting any younger. My heart pounded. Is that what you think of me? That I'm just waiting to die so you can take what little I have? He didn't answer. He just stormed out, slamming the door behind him. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at those papers. For the first time, I realized my children weren't just drifting away from me. They were beginning to circle like vultures, and deep down, a terrifying question began to form in my mind. If this is how they treat me now, what will they do when they learn about the fortune I've kept hidden all these years? It wasn't long before Anna introduced me to the man who would become her husband, Mark. From the moment I shook his hand, I felt a chill. He was polite enough, but his eyes wandered, not to me, not to Anna, but around my house, scanning the walls, the furniture, the family photos, as though he was measuring the worth of everything in sight. I wanted to believe I was just being protective. But soon, the truth revealed itself. At our first family dinner, Mark leaned back in his chair and asked casually, So, Dad, what's the value of this property nowadays? Must be worth quite a bit, huh? I laughed it off, pretending not to notice Anna's embarrassed glance. But inside my stomach knotted. Why would a young man, barely married, be so interested in the value of my house? David wasn't far behind. He brought home his girlfriend, Lisa, sharp, ambitious, with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She showered me with compliments at first. "You raised such a strong son," she said sweetly. "You must be proud." But when David left the room, her tone shifted. "So, do you have plans for your estate? I mean, most people your age start preparing, right?" I stared at her, stunned. She smiled innocently, as if she hadn't just reduced me to a ticking clock. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe they were just curious. But as time went on, I saw the pattern. Anna and Mark stopped visiting unless they needed something. Repairs for their house. Help with their bills. A small loan that never found its way back. David and Lisa were no better. They'd arrive at my door unannounced, hinting at business ideas, opportunities that required capital. And when I hesitated, Lisa would sigh dramatically as though I were letting her down. One night, I overheard them whispering in the kitchen. Lisa said, "Your father's sitting on gold, David. He just doesn't realize it. We need to get him to move faster." "Get me to move faster?" My hands trembled as I listened from the hallway. My children, my flesh and blood, weren't talking about my health or my happiness. They were talking about my assets, and in that moment, I realized something terrifying. It wasn't just the children anymore. Their spouses had joined in, feeding the greed, fanning the flames. The people who should have been my family were slowly becoming my predators. It started small. A sigh here, an eye roll there. Words muttered under their breath when they thought I couldn't hear. But disrespect has a way of growing, like weeds in a garden left untended. One Sunday, I invited Anna and David over for dinner. I spent the entire day preparing their favorite dishes. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, apple pie, the kind of meal their mother used to make. When they arrived, they walked straight into the dining room without even looking around. Anna wrinkled her nose. "This house smells old," David chuckled. "Just like Dad's truck." They laughed together as though mocking me with some private joke. I stood there with the carving knife in my hand, smiling tightly, my heart sinking. As we ate, Anna picked at her food and whispered to Mark, "My friends go to restaurants every weekend. Why are we still stuck here?" I cleared my throat. "Because home is where family belongs." David rolled his eyes. "Home? This place looks like it belongs in a museum." Even Lisa joined in, glancing at the faded curtains. "It could use a remodel. Or maybe just tear it down and build something modern." Their words stung, but I stayed quiet. I told myself it was just immaturity, just carelessness. But deep down, I knew better. The final blow came when I overheard them talking in the living room after dinner. "Dad's stuck in the past," Anna said. "Yeah," David agreed. "And broke. He doesn't get that the world runs on money now. Broke." That word echoed in my chest like a drumbeat. They thought I had nothing. They thought I was poor, powerless, irrelevant. I wanted to storm into the room to shout, "Do you even know what I've built? Do you know what's waiting for you if only you showed respect?" But I didn't. Instead, I retreated quietly to my bedroom, closed the door, and sat in the dark. Their laughter echoed through the walls, sharp and cruel. That was the night I realized the truth. My children no longer saw me as their father. They saw me as an obstacle, something in their way, something to mock, something to push aside. And if they could mock me this way now, I dreaded to imagine what they would do next. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in the living room reading the newspaper when Anna and David showed up together. That alone was unusual. They rarely came at the same time unless they wanted something. Anna carried a folder under her arm. David looked tense, pacing the floor before even saying hello. "Dad," Anna began, her voice sugary sweet. "We need to talk." I folded my newspaper slowly. "About what?" She exchanged a glance with David, then laid the folder on the coffee table. "We've been thinking. This house is too big for you. You don't need all this space. It would be smarter to sign it over now so we can manage it." "For you," David added quickly. "Yeah, Dad. You'll still live here, of course. We'll just handle the paperwork. It's easier this way." My eyes fell on the folder. Inside were property transfer forms already filled out, with my name printed neatly on the dotted lines, waiting for a signature. I stared at them in disbelief. "You expect me to give you my house? Just like that?" Anna's tone sharpened. "It's not about giving, it's about being practical. You're getting older, Dad. Don't you want peace of mind?" David leaned closer, his voice low, almost threatening. "Just sign it. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." My hands trembled. not from weakness, but from anger. These were my children, the same children I had carried on my shoulders, the same children whose scraped knees I had bandaged. And here they were, standing in my living room, pressuring me to surrender the very roof over my head. I pushed the folder back toward them. No, the room froze. Anna's eyes narrowed. "You're being stubborn," David muttered. "Old and stubborn." I felt my heart crack at those words, but I kept my voice steady. "This house is mine, and as long as I'm alive, it stays mine." They exchanged looks of frustration, then stormed out. The folder clutched tightly in Anna's hands. As the door slammed behind them, I sat back, my chest heavy with both sorrow and fury. They thought I was weak. They thought I was poor. They thought I was cornered. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that I still held a card they had never seen. A secret buried so deep that when it came to light, it would shatter their greedy little world. And in that moment, I realized the time to reveal it might be coming sooner than I had planned. The breaking point came on a night I'll never forget. It was supposed to be a simple family gathering. I had invited Anna, David, and their spouses for dinner, hoping, foolishly, that we might heal some of the growing rift between us. I set the table with my wife's old china, lit candles, even placed fresh flowers in the center. For a brief moment, I let myself believe we could be a family again. But from the moment they arrived, I sensed the storm. Lisa strutted in, glancing at the furniture with a smirk. "Still haven't changed anything, I see," she muttered. Mark laughed. "Guess some people don't know when it's time to upgrade." Anna and David didn't defend me. They laughed along. My heart sank. We ate in tense silence until Anna finally spoke. "Dad, we need to revisit the house situation." I set down my fork. "I already told you I'm not signing anything." David leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "You're old, Dad. You can't keep up with this place." "You can't even keep up with us. The words hit me like a punch." My daughter's eyes hardened as she added, "You're old and poor. You don't belong here anymore." The room fell silent. I stared at them, my own children, as tears burned in my eyes. "Is that truly how you see me? As a burden? As nothing?" Anna looked away. David muttered, "We're just being realistic." Mark cleared his throat. "Look, if you sign the papers, we can secure loans, investments. We could all live better." "Why cling to the past?" Lisa smirked. "He probably doesn't even have much left anyway." Their laughter stung more than their words. In that moment, I felt the weight of years of sacrifice crumble beneath their cruelty. The love I had carried for them, the sleepless nights, the struggles. It was as though none of it mattered. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. My voice shook, but not from weakness. "If you think I am nothing, then you know nothing about me." They fell silent, blinking in confusion. I walked away from the table, leaving the food untouched, the candles flickering in the tension-filled room, and as I closed the door to my study behind me, I whispered to myself, it's time they learn the truth. The very next morning, I called the one man who had kept my greatest secret for years, Mr. Harris, my lawyer and old friend. His voice was calm and steady as always. "Is it time?" he asked simply, as though he already knew why I was calling. "Yes," I replied. "It's time." Later that afternoon, I walked into his office, a modest space with shelves lined with law books and the faint smell of old leather. I had been there many times before, but this visit felt different. My heart was heavy, my hands clenched. Mr. Harris motioned for me to sit. "You look tired, my friend." "What happened?" I told him everything. The mocking, the disrespect, the words my children had hurled at me like daggers. When I repeated Anna's cruel sentence, "You're old and poor," his jaw tightened. "They don't know the truth," he said firmly. I shook my head. "They don't deserve to. But maybe they need to." He opened his drawer and pulled out a thick envelope. Inside were documents I had signed years ago, investments, land deeds, and finally the will. At the top of the papers, the figure that still felt unreal stared back at me. $42 million, every sacrifice I had made, every late-night shift, every wise investment that grew quietly in the background, it had all led to this. I wasn't just comfortable. I was wealthy beyond their imagination, and yet I had never told them. Why? Because I wanted to see what kind of people they would become without money dangling in front of them. I wanted to know if they could value me for me, not for what I had. Mr. Harris adjusted his glasses. If you're ready, we can set the meeting. Bring them all here. It's time they hear the truth. I nodded, though a part of me hesitated. What if it destroys them? He leaned forward. Then it destroys them. But at least the mask will be gone. You'll finally see who they truly are. I left his office with the envelope in hand, my heart pounding. The papers felt heavier than stone, not because of their weight, but because of the storm they would unleash. As I drove home, I couldn't shake the thought, once I revealed the secret, there would be no turning back, and deep down, I wondered, would my children regret their cruelty, or would 42 million only reveal an even uglier side of them? That night I barely slept. I sat at the kitchen table with the envelope in front of me, staring at the numbers, the signatures, the proof of everything I had built. $42 million. To the world, it was a fortune. To me, it was the blood, sweat, and tears of a lifetime. I thought about my wife, how she had told me time and time again that respect mattered more than wealth. How she had begged me to raise the children with humility. If she were alive, would she tell me to reveal the truth in order to keep it buried? By morning, I had made my decision. I called Anna, David, Mark, and Lisa. My voice was steady as I said, I need you all to meet me tomorrow, at Mr. Harris's office. There was silence on the line, followed by Anna's suspicious tone. Why? What for? You'll see, I replied. Just be there. When I hung up, I could almost hear their whispers behind the phone. The curiosity in their voices was sharp. They would come. Of that, I was certain. The following day, I arrived early at the lawyer's office. Mr. Harris greeted me with a firm handshake. Ready? As ready as I'll ever be, I muttered. Minutes later, I heard their footsteps in the hallway. Anna entered first, her heels clicking against the tile. David followed, Lisa clinging to his arm, while Mark carried himself with smug confidence. They looked around the office like vultures circling prey. What's going on, Dad? Anna demanded. Yeah, David added. Why drag us all the way here? Mr. Harris cleared his throat. Please sit. All of you. They settled reluctantly, impatience written on their faces. Lisa whispered something into David's ear and he smirked. Mark folded his arms, leaning back as if he already knew the outcome. I looked at them, my children, my blood, and felt a mixture of love, sorrow, and fury. You've made it clear you think I'm old. That I'm poor. That I have nothing left to give, I began, my voice shaking slightly. But today, you're going to find out just how wrong you are. Their eyes widened. Anna leaned forward. David's smirk faltered, and before they could speak, Mr. Harris opened the envelope and laid the papers on the table. This, he said firmly, changes everything. The room fell silent as Mr. Harris spread the documents across the polished table. The weight of the moment pressed against my chest, but I stayed quiet. I wanted them to see it for themselves. Anna was the first to reach forward. Her manicured fingers slid one page closer, her eyes scanning the lines. At first, she frowned in confusion. Then her lips parted in shock. Dad, she whispered. What is this? David snatched a page from her hands. His eyes darted across the bold numbers, his mouth falling open. Lisa leaned over his shoulder, her hand flying to her mouth. Mark simply stared, frozen. Mr. Harris adjusted his glasses and spoke in his steady tone. These are the records of your father's estate. His investments, his property holdings, his will. As of now, the value of his assets stands at $42 million. The words hung in the air like thunder. Lisa gasped. 42.
Million?
Mark's voice cracked. That can't be right. He lives like this? He gestured vaguely at my worn jacket, the old shoes on my feet. David slammed his hand on the table.
Why didn't you tell us?
All these years, why did you let us think you were broke? I finally spoke, my voice calm but cutting. Because I wanted to see who you truly were without the promise of money. I wanted to know if you valued me, or just what I could give you. Anna's face flushed red. That's not fair, she snapped. You let us struggle while you sat on this fortune? I met her glare with steady eyes. Struggle? You mocked me. You called me old, poor, useless. If this is how you treat me when you think I have nothing, what would you have done if you'd known the truth? For once, they had no words. The silence was thick, broken only by Lisa's shaky voice. So, what happens now? Mr. Harris leaned forward. What happens now is entirely up to your father. All eyes turned to me. For the first time in years, I felt the power shift. No longer was I the old poor man they mocked. I was the one holding the cards, and they knew it. But even as I sat there, I realized the decision ahead of me wasn't just about money. It was about justice, about teaching them a lesson they would never forget. I let the silence stretch until it became almost unbearable. Their eyes burned into me, hungry, desperate, calculating. For years they had dismissed me as irrelevant, but now every breath they took depended on the words that would leave my mouth. I leaned back in my chair. You want to know what happens now? Anna nodded quickly. David clenched his fists, leaning forward. Even Lisa and Mark, who had always carried themselves with smug confidence, were suddenly subdued. I took a deep breath. For years I've watched you. I've seen how you speak to me, how you treat me. You thought I had nothing, and so you showed me who you really are. Cruel, greedy, disrespectful. Anna's face twisted. Dad, that's not fair. Not fair? I cut her off. What wasn't fair was hearing my own daughter say I didn't belong in my own house. What wasn't fair was my son trying to trick me into signing over my property. What wasn't fair was watching the people I raised mock me for the very life I gave you. David's jaw tightened. We were just worried about you. No, I said coldly. You were worried about yourselves. Mr. Harris cleared his throat and lifted another document from the pile. Your father has prepared his will. Everything is written clearly here. The $42 million estate has been secured. The question is, who will inherit it? Anna gasped. Lisa's eyes sparkled with greed. Mark whispered under his breath, $42 million. David tried to steady his voice. Dad, we're your children. Who else would it go to? I looked at him, really looked at him. The boy who used to hold my hand during thunderstorms was gone. In his place was a man whose eyes gleamed only for wealth. Children inherit from parents when they have earned the right to carry their legacy, I said softly, but respect. Love, kindness. Those things can't be faked. Anna slammed her hand on the table. So what, you'll give it to strangers? To charity? After everything we've done for you? I met her gaze without flinching. Everything you've done for me? You mean the insults? The laughter? The betrayal? She fell silent, her mouth opening but no words coming out. Lisa finally spoke, her tone sharp. If you cut them out, people will say you're cruel. They'll say you abandoned your own blood. I leaned forward, my voice low but firm. Blood means nothing without respect. Their faces paled, and for the first time, I saw something besides greed in their eyes. Fear. And in that fear, I knew the lesson was only beginning. The air in the office had grown heavy, thick with unspoken dread. Anna sat rigid, her lips pressed into a thin line. David's foot tapped nervously under the table. Mark and Lisa exchanged worried glances, their earlier arrogance melting into unease. Mr. Harris adjusted his glasses and looked at me. Shall I read the provisions, then? I nodded slowly. Yes, let them hear it. He cleared his throat and began. In the event of my passing, the estate valued at $42 million shall be divided. He paused deliberately, glancing at me before continuing, according to the conditions set by the benefactor. Anna's nails dug into the armrest of her chair. Conditions? What conditions? David leaned forward, his voice sharp. Dad, you can't just... I raised my hand, silencing him. You've spent years treating me like a burden, mocking me, pressuring me to sign away everything I own. Did you really think there would be no consequences? Their faces drained of color. Mr. Harris continued reading. The estate shall not pass automatically to the children. Instead, a trust has been established. Beneficiaries will only inherit if they can demonstrate consistent respect, responsibility, and care for their father in the remaining years of his life. Lisa gasped. What kind of nonsense is that? Mark muttered under his breath. This is ridiculous, but I didn't waver. You wanted to know what happens now? That's what happens. You don't get a cent simply because you share my blood. You earn it, or you lose it! Anna's voice rose, trembling with rage. So you're going to control us? Make us grovel just to get what's rightfully ours? I stood, my voice firm. It isn't rightfully yours. It's mine. And until you learn the value of respect, it will stay that way. For the first time, their bravado cracked. David's eyes darted to Lisa, who looked furious. Anna's hands shook. Mark muttered curses under his breath. They had walked into that office expecting an easy victory, a signature, a fortune dropped in their laps. Instead, they walked out facing the possibility of nothing, and as they stormed out, their footsteps echoing down the hallway, I felt something shift inside me. For years, I had been the one on the defensive, the one mocked and cornered. But now, the power was back where it belonged. Still, one question remained, heavy in my chest as I watched the door close behind them. Would they change, or would greed destroy them completely? After the meeting at Mr. Harris's office, the house felt different, quieter. The phone didn't ring as often, and when it did, the voices on the other end were tight, clipped, and laced with bitterness. Anna tried to call first. "Dad, we need to talk. Maybe we overreacted." But her tone was rehearsed, lacking warmth. I could hear Mark in the background whispering instructions. David showed up 2 days later, unannounced. He leaned against the doorframe, shifting uncomfortably. "Dad, you know I didn't mean all those things. Lisa just gets in my head sometimes." His smile was forced, his words hollow. For the first time, I saw them clearly. Not as the children I raised, but as adults consumed by greed. They weren't apologizing because they regretted their actions. They were apologizing because $42 million stood between them and the life they craved. I let them speak. I listened, and then calmly I said, "Respect cannot be faked. I'll know if it's real." Their faces fell. They wanted shortcuts. They wanted loopholes. But I had closed every door they thought they could walk through. In the weeks that followed, their frustration turned into anger. Anna stopped calling altogether. David snapped at me one evening, his patience gone. "Why are you making this so hard? We're your kids, for God's sake." I looked at him steadily. "Being my child doesn't give you the right to disrespect me. Blood is not a license for betrayal." His jaw tightened, and he stormed out, leaving me alone once more. For a while, I wondered if I had gone too far. The silence in the house was deafening. I thought of my wife, how she would have held my hand and told me I'd done the right thing. But doubt still gnawed at me. Then one evening, I overheard Anna and David outside the house, their voices sharp and bitter. "This is taking too long," Anna hissed. "We need that money now," David replied. "He'll cave. He has to. He's old. He can't hold out forever." Their words stabbed me like knives, and in that moment I realized they hadn't learned anything at all. Not yet. I sat alone in the study that night, the weight of their words echoing in my mind. They weren't children anymore, but they were still acting like spoiled kids who thought the world owed them something. I stared at the family photo on my desk. Me, my wife Anna, and David when they were just teenagers. Back then, their smiles were genuine, their arms around my shoulders. What happened to that family? How had we become strangers fighting over paper and numbers? The truth hurt, but it was clear. Greed had blinded them. And maybe, just maybe, I was partly to blame. I had given them comfort, but not enough lessons in humility. I had given them stability, but not enough reminders that respect was the true inheritance. Mr. Harris called me the next morning. "They'll fight you," he warned gently. "Maybe even take this to court." "You should be ready," I sighed. "Let them. They can fight all they want, but they won't win. Not against the truth. Not against the way they've treated me." And fight they did. Anna sent me angry letters filled with accusations. David threatened to expose me in the community as a manipulative old man. Lisa and Mark whispered to anyone who would listen that I was abandoning my own blood. At first, it stung. Neighbors gave me strange looks. Old friends called asking what was happening. But when I told them the truth, the mocking, the betrayal, the greed, their eyes softened with understanding. Some even said quietly, "You're doing the right thing." I wasn't alone. Not really. One evening as I walked through town, I ran into Mrs. Parker, an old family friend. She put her hand on mine and said, "You know, respect matters more than money. Children who forget that. Well, life has a way of teaching them one way or another." Her words stayed with me. I realized then, the inheritance wasn't just about wealth. It was about legacy. And I wasn't going to leave behind a legacy of entitlement and greed. No, I would leave a legacy that taught them a final, unforgettable lesson. And as I closed my eyes that night, the plan became clearer. Weeks later, I called Mr. Harris and asked him to make one last change to my will. He raised an eyebrow but didn't question me. Are you sure about this? He asked. I nodded. More sure than I've ever been. The next Sunday, I invited Anna, David, Lisa, and Mark to the house. They arrived reluctantly, suspicion in their eyes. For once, they were quiet, waiting for me to speak. I set a single envelope on the table. Inside this, I said, is my final decision. Anna reached for it, but I held up a hand. Before you open it, I want you to hear me clearly. Money is a tool, nothing more. It can build families or it can destroy them. And what you've shown me is that greed can turn love into poison, David scoffed. Just get to the point, Dad. I leaned forward, my voice steady. The point is, I won't let money be the chain that drags you deeper into disrespect. The estate, all $42 million, will go into a charitable foundation. It will build schools, feed families, and provide homes for those who truly need it. The room erupted. Anna shouted, "You can't do this!" Lisa gasped, "That money belongs to us!" David's face turned red. "You've lost your mind." But I didn't flinch. No, I found my clarity. You wanted fortune without respect. You wanted wealth without gratitude. So you get nothing except this lesson. Mark's voice was barely a whisper. So all of it? Gone? I looked each of them in the eye. Gone to those who deserve it more than you. Maybe one day you'll understand why. For a long moment, no one spoke. Their faces were twisted with anger, disbelief, even betrayal. But beneath it all, I saw something new flicker in their eyes. Shame. As they stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind them, I sat back in my chair and exhaled. For the first time in years, my heart felt light. The money was gone, yes, but so was the burden of their greed. And in that silence, I whispered to myself, respect matters more than money. And now they know it too.